Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 39, Post Mini Mail Survey. What a week it's been. I'm going to start off instead of going through the guys first. And what a week it's been. So last Saturday, our Amazon showed up after cutoff time. All right. So we agreed on Monday. We normally go in for 2 hours and case up flats. And I had brought it up to management saying, hey, we're still in the mini mail survey. These have to be counted, so we can't case them. And supervisor said, oh, but you can deliver the Amazon that came in late today. Okay. Not a problem. Grant you not. I have 2 newbies with me who have never just ran out and done packages. I was loaded in the truck before they walked in the door. And then they are marking the parcels. Writing on the parcel markers and marking the parcels before they loaded them. So now you got an hour before they get out the door. We have 1 hour left. I took some that were rather far out. So I got back about 11:45. And we were supposed to be backing off the clock by 11:30. Let's put it that way. Neither of the other 2 are in sight. I asked the clerk that was there. I said, did supervisor give you time on what time these guys are supposed to be back? She's like, no, but I need to be off the clock by 12:30. I sent them a text message, hey guys, you need to wrap it up, head back, and everybody needs to be off the clock by 12:30. I get a text message from the one sub that says, oh, well, I should be done by 2. No, you need to be back and off the clock because the clerk needs to be off the clock and the building locked up by 12:30 at the latest. Okay, Tuesday morning rolls in. And we can't even get in the parking lot because we have one Amazon truck delivering while the other one is blocking our drive waiting for the dock to be free. So we all yell at him. And we get in, and of course we got our behinds handed to us, of course. It was heavy on all accounts. I am on Route 4, and Route 3, the one that the carrier just retired on last week, the sub is on there. He's griping and complaining and up one way and down another and all this other stuff. I happen to be the veteran smartass RCA that I am that says, well, it's all downhill from here. Or no, excuse me. I said, well, it doesn't get any better from here on out till after Christmas. Yeah, I guess I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm getting ready to put my smalls in order, and I don't see him at the case. I'm like, oh, maybe he's out loading because I didn't see the hamper there. And I'm getting ready to go load. It's probably been good 15, 20 minutes or a half hour. And I go walk past Route 3's case, and his badge, arrow key, and scanner are sitting on the desk. I went, oh, shit. I walked outside, and his car was gone. Walked back in, straight to the supervisor's desk, and said, yep, he walked. She's like, what? I said, yeah. Told her what I found. She's like, you're kidding. I went back outside again, looked in the LLV. LLV keys were in the ignition of the LLV. Pulled those out, came back. They tried to call the carrier in for the route I was covering. She couldn't come in. So the postmaster and a borrowed RCA split Route 3 on Tuesday. And I've been running Route 3 ever since and will until it goes up for bid and I'm awarded it. So I am now 6 days a week on a 45K indefinitely. That's been my week.
So
James,
what you're
how was
saying is
your
you scared
week?
them
Or
off.
Josh? Huh?
I said, so
What?
what you're saying is you scared them off.
I
You're
don't
not
think
supposed to run them off.
he. No, I don't think I scared him off. We've been waiting for him to go. He's just, well,
Giving that
doesn't
extra push.
Thinking not a
have.
good time to do it.
Well, the last one quit on a heavy day too, walked off. So it's just they can't handle the heavy days, I'm guessing. I mean, having done it for so many years, I take it with a grain of salt anymore. But yep, he still left a good stack of flats and raw mail that still needed to be cased. Um, Postmasters in there trying to case it. And then I'm out loading the road I'm on, and the borrowed sub walks up, but I looked at him and I said, "Boy, you're a sight for sore eyes." And I told him what happened, and I said, "So, I imagine you're going to be working a lot more than just a couple hours on that ox route today." Yep, they got back after 8 o'clock. Both him and the postmaster. I mean, I got back at 6:45. I put in a 12 and a quarter hour day myself, but yeah, it was well after 8 o'clock when they got back.
Ouch.
And so that just yanked me off the schedule for covering all the other routes. And on Saturdays, as it is right now, I still had to take my ox route yesterday.
You'll probably be doing that all the rest of the time.
Well, we've got the borrowed sub a few days to cover it, and then our other newbie, he's gonna try out the ox route coming up Thursday. And then he had some things going on this week, so he wasn't available. And then the following week, we're actually going to train him on the 41K route that we nicknamed Turnaround, because that one will need coverage one Saturday. And like I said, being the only one in the office that knows all the routes, this really just screwed everybody. And because of it, and being not a leave replacement available for that weekend of my fall booster, this will only be the second one I have missed in 8 years. I'm not happy about it.
It happens.
It does. It does. And I'm going to say that because one of the other regulars already, even though it's his K day, he put in for it to make sure he had it off for a family event. So, yeah, means I have nobody to run my route, and probably won't for a while, but I already am preparing to have my 120-day letter ready to turn in the day I officially take that route over as a regular. So, yeah. That was my week in a nutshell. James, how was your week?
Well, other than it being the normal count stuff, most of it was pretty much easy. They decided to change our start times from 7:45 to 8 o'clock again, like we were before they changed the start times. They went from 8 o'clock to 8:30, and then they changed it back to 7:45, and now we're back to 8 o'clock again. And so we'll be starting at 8 o'clock, starting, well, yesterday. But other than Friday was okay, except I had two full broken bundles of pre-sorted flats, and they were the mixed flats with the first class, third class, all that stuff in it, and it had WSH Costco's in them too. So I got all of those added in on my count sheet because it was a broken bundle. And there was two broken bundles. Both bundles had at least 75 pieces in them each. So I ended up with 202 random flats for that
I
with
had
my
water bills
sorted.
come in for 95% of my route raw.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
inverts and stuff like that weren't too bad this week, which seems to be the trend across a lot of places, not everywhere, but a lot of places saw very minimal DPS errors compared to normal, which seems about right for the mini mail survey time. Um, didn't have too many issues in office, but it's good when you have an office that actually works as a cohesive team and has management that cares about you. but we'll get into that later on in our rabbit hole discussion that we normally get at the end of our thing. So I'm dropping hints to our listeners to pay attention because the passion's coming out today again. So
Josh, how
Core to
was
pay
your week?
attention.
Yeah, your turn, Josh. How was your week?
My week was not too horrible. During the survey, I had at least 3 days where at least one of my trace of GPS was completely screwed up, giving me 100 and something random letters out of just that tray. I should say somewhere between 100 and 200, depending on which of the 3 days it was. It wasn't too horrible this past week. I have an RCA that I've been training for my route. She went to Academy the first week of the survey. So I had her the one day before she went to Academy, and then she was back Tuesday morning, helped me get it cased up, and then they pulled her to run parcels because I had so many routes out on the other side, the other zone. She goes to vehicle training on this Tuesday coming up. So I have Monday and Wednesday to get her up to par so she can run the route on her own. And the supervisor said she will consider the 2 pay periods to start after vehicle training. So that'll be really nice.
Oh, Bill, how was your week?
Oh, it was wonderful. I averaged a little over 500 pieces of WSH every day, duly recorded and noted. I could never walk out and leave my badge and scanner and keys on my case because I haven't had a badge in 9 years. So got forced in again on Saturday against my will. And then the PTF who transferred into our office from another office, who took annual on Friday, called out on Saturday, and then didn't have to work today because he was moving. Yeah, right. Ended up, they just took a brand new hire and put her on Amazon Sunday. Never been out on a route, and put her on Amazon Sunday.
Oh, she will last not very long.
You can't make this shit up. I mean,
no, you cannot.
We have 2 people out on medical. One's been out for almost 3 months now. The other one's been out 2 weeks. But because of the 2-week time period, our superior management team who schedules us forgets the fact that he's not coming in and put the new schedule up with him still on the schedule.
Sounds about
So,
right.
Saturday we have a vacant route, and the postmaster gave us our service talk and says, well, who can help on the vacant route? So I stick my hand up. He says, you. I said, no, I'm working my drop day. I can't work any extra. And he says, why not? I says, in the contract. He said, I'll make a deal. I said, I don't make a deals with you. Everybody started laughing, yawning. Yeah. He goes, I really hate you, Bill. And I said, I'm doing my job then. I mean, come on. I'm already helping you by being in on my day off. And please don't ask me to do any more because, I'm at that tipping point.
Yep. I hear you. We've got quite a bit going on for this show today. How'd you want to start off, James? You want me to start off with the messages and emails, or?
Before we get into it, Bill, you said something about them working you. Apparently the rural manager down there decided she doesn't want to have to deal with X days, so she pretty much told all the super, that anyone not in the list will not work their relief days. And then I just heard in the last day or two, the supervisor or someone told me that the supervisors told them that when you work your relief day, you can't take a code 3. You have to take the 5. So I will have to let my rep know that so they can get that addressed.
All right. So because this is the end of the mini mail survey, a lot of people are wondering what happens next. So the few things I have on here, the first one is about signing the sheet, confirming count numbers, and selecting the high-low option. So I figured that would be a good easy starting point, not too political or passionate. I figured we could start there. What do you guys think?
Go for it.
I try not to. It's
So,
painful.
so now that the mini mail survey is over and you've done all the mail figures and management has punched everything in the computer, they're going to print out a sheet, and some people have already gotten it Saturday, showing the count numbers for your random letters, random flats, so on and so forth. And they're going to want you to sign the sheet verifying the numbers. And then they also want you to select high or low option if that's available to you. And that's only available to regular carriers who have 10 years in as a regular carrier. Anybody under 10 years does not get the choice. They automatically get low option. So, Bill, your thoughts on signing the count sheet?
Not going to happen. First of all, if you look at the count sheet, and if you look below the numbers, it says they want you to complete the section below at the last day of the mini mail survey. Well, in my office, our supervisor wasn't available. The mini mail survey sheet wasn't printed. Ergo, we couldn't sign it. But folks, why are you going to sign the high-low option when you don't even know your evaluation yet? There's no service talks on our mini mail survey sheet. I'm not giving them 1 ounce of ink in regards to signing that sheet. And when they come by, I'll just flatly refuse. I won't even sign on there that I refuse. I'm just refusing and asking for a copy of it with their name on there. Whatever they want to write is fine by me, because of the fact that I'm not making a decision based on numbers and an evaluation that I have no knowledge of. Besides the fact that we still have all the discrepancies of, the missing numbers on radar correlating to the days that you actually delivered the bundled flats. Mini rant.
And don't forget, if you have a discrepancy like your WSH numbers, that means that those count numbers are incorrect, and therefore you should not sign and accept them as accurate.
I didn't see
That
a piece of
and
WSH in my office all last 2 weeks. We don't get a lot of it.
yeah, to be honest, I wasn't paying that close enough attention. But I don't think I got any either. Maybe 1 or 2 pieces that were in the middle of a bundle of other things. But I didn't have anything that was like the Costco or Sam's Club stuff come in during the count. So you sign for the high option, you're signing that you agree to take enough leave to keep you under 2080. And they can hold you to that come the, later next year.
Unless you have denied leave slips.
Well, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother ballgame.
Yep, that's as they say, a horse of another color.
Well, and here's another conflict of the situation. We have 18 rural routes in our office, and we all got these local publications by the different counties and townships and everything. 16 of the routes had them as WSHs. Well, in my 629 house route, I got 548 WSH. Only 2 routes in the entire office got them as WSS. Why? How come? Did they forget? Did they screw up? Did the post office not warn these people? What? I mean, it is such a ridiculous system that we have right now. There's so many holes and errors in it. I turn around, I come back on Saturday, and I have, the package look ahead, and I have a package left on my scanner. And I tell the supervisor, and he goes in the computer, says, computer says you don't have anything. I says, how are we to trust these scanners with our paychecks?
Mhm.
Second mini rant done.
We'll get into that later too.
Well, Bill, keep in mind with that one in the look ahead, it could have went to an office in Philadelphia, got scanned, arrived at unit there. It'll put it in your look ahead. But then if they, and then they can track it seeing that it was scanned in at 19020 or whatever zip it is, rather than your zip code. And that they should have put a missent scan on it once they caught it.
It shouldn't matter. If it doesn't get there in time for me to take it to the street, it shouldn't be on the system for that day, period. Remember, we have all these geniuses who designed this system, okay? Not ordinary
disagreeing with you.
carriers like us.
Yep.
Not disagreeing with you.
All right. So we're going to move to, when are the evaluations going to come back to the carriers? Now, the Postal Service and the union have said that the evaluations will be going into effect October 7th, supposedly. Now, what that means for us is they should supposedly have our numbers back to us no later than September 30th. Has to be the preceding pay period. It has to come to us so it can go into effect after the next pay period. So September 30th, October 7th. It's a week before.
Now, through the rumor mill, I've been hearing supposedly the 23rd, the numbers will be available, the evaluations will be available, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
And there's no debate that they might even delay this count too, just like the last one.
No, I don't think they'll delay it. I just think that, they gave longer so they could hopefully not have the BS that we had this last go round with 3 different 4241As. So, I don't know. I don't think they're going to delay it. I just think it's going to be another cluster, but that's me.
And when they finally come out with it, just to give you guys a heads up, when they finally come out with it, we will be bringing up a podcast on the dispute process and how to do the dispute form. As soon as we get that information, we will let you guys know. But until that time, unfortunately, we're just as much in the dark as you guys are on it. We can go by what happened the last time, but just like everything else in the rec system, it changes more often than people change their underwear. So
yeah. There is a dispute highlight thing on the national website, but that's about all there is at the moment. Just highlighting what you actually can dispute and what you need to dispute it.
And let me tell you, from a personal point of view, that's bullshit. They're limiting what we can dispute when there's tons of items outside of that spectrum that are up in the air. I mean, the parcel is a parcel is a parcel. If it's in your hamper, it's a parcel. Not in this office, but it is in that office. If it fits in your case, it's a parcel. Well, if you can bend it over 6 times, it's a flat. Like I said, this is like Obamacare. You had to vote for it to see what's in it. This, they're saying you had to implement to see what we need to correct. No, you didn't spend 11 years on this, ladies and gentlemen, to find out the bugs after you put it into effect. And our national board should have never agreed to put this into effect. They have failed us.
I agree. I think they should have took those test study offices and made them beta testing offices before everything went live. But no, that makes sense.
You are correct. 1 point.
You are not left.
all right. The next one is, Will there be adjustments made after this mini mail survey? It's been a big dispute online. I want to get your guys' take on it.
I've
Well-
heard supposedly after New Year's that they've been testing a process the last couple months in small regions. I heard supposedly after New Year's they should be able to do it. But
And they hold off until after the next mini mail survey. That way, everybody's route at least has 52 weeks worth of actual information in it, you know, with the scans and stuff like that, and the inputs, and so on and so forth. But we know how they are, and we have to take everything with a little bit of carrier discretion.
Yep.
well, not looking at it, but if I remember correctly, didn't the MOU, I know it was October of this year. Was it the 7th or was it the 31st on that
It
MOU?
was towards the end of the month. Let me go look it up.
All
real
right,
quick.
so it was so it would have been October 31st of this year, which puts us into November, which means they're not going to get into it because of the holiday season, which puts us into January anyway, at the absolute earliest.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
That and
it's
with the change of the CBUs and curbside volume factor system, I think it would be wise of them to hold off on that anyway in the first place.
It'll be interesting to see how that affects things overall, because like you guys are, like I know Kristen, most of your routes are curbside,
yes.
where my route is probably 70% CBU.
It is in effect, going back to your MOU on route territorial adjustments. It is October 7th is when that MOU
Okay.
expires.
Right, I couldn't remember if it was the 7th or the 31st. I knew it was one or the other.
Yeah, it's the 7th. I just looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the end of this count, but I would not put it past them to extend it because they probably still haven't figured out how to do the computer programming.
I doubt they'll extend it. They
Well,
just
they
won't
haven't been able
do
to. They haven't figured out the mapping yet for everybody, and the mapping keeps changing. So how are they going to figure out the adjustments?
You can't even get management to sit down and map with the carriers still. I can't. It just irks me.
Oh, Chris,
It
and
really
ours
does.
is even worse. We have to have a facilitator there because our manager doesn't know how to do it.
My manager told me that once I go full time, she doesn't think I'll be able to facilitate anymore because she doesn't know how to pay me.
We just discussed that the other
8127.
day. Yep.
8127 time on P code. That's how you pay them. That's how I get paid for it, is 8127 on a P code. Of course, then I have to explain. Then I have to explain to our state secretary that I'm only doing mapping facilitation in order to be able to be a delegate in the conventions.
Yeah. But do you have your own ACE ID for that?
No, I do not.
Okay, so you use managements like I do.
Exactly. Although
They
technically, just like clerks and city carriers, we all should have ACE IDs to log into the computer. But the issue is that you have to log in once at least every 2 weeks in order
Yep.
for you to maintain the login for it.
Yep.
Oh hell, we can't even log into the Wi-Fi doing steward work. What the hell makes you think they're going to give you any type of access to their system?
Oh, I know, right?
I wouldn't use their systems, their internet, or anything for steward work because
Oh no.
that allows them to have access to everything.
Yeah, nope.
Every piece
I
of data you
pass on
pass through
that.
their Wi-Fi, every piece of data you pass through their Wi-Fi, they can look at.
All right,
And I
guys,
wouldn't
we're
put it
kind of
past
going
them
off
either.
track here. Let's move her back on to where we were.
Okay. All right. So we've had some carriers get their dispute forms back. Some carriers did win their disputes. However, they got their adjustments and are not getting any back pay on it. Some carriers got their dispute forms
Oof.
back, and it told them that because they argued that they didn't receive training on it, that it's been on the union website since April of 2022. Some of them have not gotten their dispute forms back yet. It's been a giant cluster bucket.
It has been.
And
It really has been.
and the problem is some of it is not getting relayed from the management to the carrier. Some of it is it hasn't been fully resolved yet through the. Now, have any of you guys gotten your disputes back?
We had the
Well-
one in our office on my primary route because he had filed that dispute on the mileage. He has not received the actual dispute back from management. In fact, my postmaster hasn't even received it yet. However, he got a new Form 50 a couple weeks ago, or I should say, yeah, last week before the paycheck stuff. That had the effective date of May 26th on it, to where his mileage was correct and it was actually enough to put him up 1 hour. And on his paycheck, he did have the pay adjustment, retro pay on there, as did I. Wasn't much, but for me, but yeah.
And the back pay too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he got the EMA and the back pay. Yeah.
Now in
See,
the
I
PA,
only
the Delaware PA2 district, we still have at least 40 plus offices that haven't received their disputes back yet from the first mini mail survey.
I know in North Carolina, of the 4,000 disputes they had, they did sit on all of them. And the understanding I have is labor was supposed to sprinkle it down to local management, who was then supposed to give it to the carrier. But like James said, some of them, it hasn't made its way to the local management yet.
Are you guys ready for the passionate, hardcore one tonight?
Go for it.
Yeah,
All right.
baby, go.
So
Light it up, baby, light it up.
between the group of us, we've gotten several emails and messages about managerial harassment. So I'm going to read each email, let you guys discuss the email itself, and then after those two emails, then we can get into an actual discussion on how to deal with managerial harassment. Okay, can we do that way?
Yep.
All right. So this first one, I have an area on my route that has 5 CBUs and another area the next street over that also has 5 CBUs. These addresses are for brand new $500,000 to $1 million homes and some condos. Around 200 addresses between the 10 CBUs. I've been on my route for almost 5 years, and I was a sub on my route before I did it. I've always delivered these the same way, even before Rex. I load tubs below my tray for each set of 5, 2 total. Any of the larger packages go in my door jamb on the left-hand side as long as they fit. When I pull up on the left-hand side and deliver from that side back and forth between my truck and the CBU. This is a high volume area with a lot of packages and a lot of flats and at least 2 bundles of DPS a day. I am a 5'1" petite girl. I can only hold so much DPS in my hands at a time, yet I am being harassed about making too many authorized dismount trips. Currently, on a daily basis, I have anywhere from 6 to 9 trips, including my initial trip to complete delivery. In the beginning, our postmaster and supervisors were telling us that packages were not counted in the trips. They literally had a stand-up talk saying to not include packages. After reading through the Rex questions, I realized that there were at least 2 areas in there that said packages were included. I brought this to the attention of my postmaster and was yelled at, and she has yet to correct it with anyone. About 3 weeks ago, my supervisor came up to me and told me on the workroom floor that I needed to start doing one authorized dismount for my area and take a tub to the CBU and work out of the tub and scoot it with my foot. I let them know that this is a safety issue and also an issue of protecting the mail from theft and weather. I asked him to put it in writing what he was telling me because it sounded so ridiculous. I got it in writing, which I will include. It has no letterhead, no date, and I did not sign it, and he asked me to after. Are we supposed to sign what we ask them to put into writing? After this conversation, I filed a grievance, which currently my in-house steward has pushed back until the 14th because of count. About a week after getting that, I had an II following a direct order from my supervisor, which he did not have the exact date on when he gave me that direct order, because he is considering the letter he gave me that I asked him to write is his writing as a direct order. Fast forward a little bit until yesterday, I was given 7-day in-house suspension form for not stopping my scans. Today I went into the office this morning with another grievance on the suspension, and my supervisor had a hard time signing it because he says he is not disciplining me because of my scans, but it's disciplining me because I'm not following instructions, to which the instructions I am not following are my scans. So I'm very confused. I have asked him to look back into past data, to which he said he could see back to November of last year and could see that my scans were similar to what I'm inputting now. My route is a 47K and went up with last count. What can I do? I'm so stressed about this, and I'm losing pay due to not putting in the numbers that are correct. My supervisor has said that I could just grab it later and then probably get a settlement for it, but I don't know how that would work towards my salary. I'm really sick of dealing with this, and I'm hoping you guys can provide me some clarity or direction while I'm waiting on an email back from our district rep. Love the pod, guys, and you guys are keeping me sane and going. Thank you. That was a long one.
It did. It started off with this was going to be a long one. That was sent 3 days ago, by the way, just so y'all have a dateline.
So,
I want to hear Bill's on this one.
yeah, definitely Bill would be the one I want to hear, but I would hope that we would give him time to gather his thoughts on it before we let him loose.
File,
Alright,
file, and then file again.
And
Okay.
if you don't get a
File.
reapply from your DR, move up the chain.
And then you go EEO and file for harassment. If you have a history of delivering those CBUs showing your dismounts, how can they contend that you're not doing it properly? If you have paperwork in your hand showing that the parcels are authorized dismounts at CBUs, how can they argue it? They are in direct violation of the contract. Keep filing until you choke them with enough paper until it comes out their ass. Enough of this harassment. And you relay that to your local registered union representative, the ADR, the DR, and you go up to your committee person, and you don't stop until they back off. The first time you back off is when they're going to win, okay? So don't back off. Make them eat their words. Make them read the contract. Make them honor the contract.
And don't settle for language.
Oh, hell no. Because I'll give you some language to settle for.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on that one, or you want to go on the second one before we finish up with harassment?
well, you said that the supervisor should put it in writing but would not date it or sign it themselves.
It's not a direct order.
Correct.
If it's
But
not
then,
signed, if they're not willing to put their name on it,
then they wanted to have the carrier sign acknowledging that it was in writing.
yeah.
So I would just put that in as part of the statement that you give to your union rep with the grievance.
Yeah, you're saying they did not make it a direct order because they did not date and sign it, and they can't prove what date they gave it to you, and you don't have a copy of it either. So, did they just print this out themselves? Did they print this out to make it look like they had a direct order that day? Because they have to put their signature on it with a round date. The round date is not so that way they could say it was on this date. That round date is to say it was this office on this date. That's what the round date is for. It's your post office's stamp saying, your cancellation stamp basically saying that it was this office at this date. And that's when they should round date it and sign it, and that makes it a direct order. They're just writing it on pieces of paper. It's not a direct order because they don't have the date or their name on it saying it's from them. It's not their word. It's just a piece of paper. It could have been written by your casemate saying the same thing. They don't know the difference. So, but the next one I have is kind of along the same lines, but also more other parts of Rex in the mini mail survey. Hello, United We Scan. I became a new carrier February 11th, a couple weeks before a mini mail survey. The route I ended up with was a growing 44H route, even though the entire office knows it's more. Package heavy. We also were aware the previous carrier on the route only did 6 scans, never scanning at delivery points and hadn't updated mapping. Mini mail survey ends and my route actually went down to a 43H, while every route in our office went up. Didn't make sense. Finally got onto mapping and there was a lot missing. Fix what I knew. PO is not a lot of help and I'm just learning the system. Now the route is averaging 200 plus packages a day, 350-ish on Mondays. Most days I have 3 trips to get it all done. The PO is refusing to give me help, saying only overburdened routes get help. Knowing the truth about this route, it's so discouraging knowing the post office allows one person so much abusing power over a facility, but that's another story. Question. PO has avoided doing mapping with me all of August. I've asked every week right up until September 8th. She says can't do mapping until books come back. They've had my book all month. Should I grieve this ASAP? Also, she won't give me package help to do mapping on end of shift duties. She would expect me to do on my PM casing time. Is she required to help me so I can get mapping done on end of shift time? Grievance? Question. Since I started working there almost 3 years now, there is black mold growing on the ceiling. Majority is over my case. People have complained and nothing got done. Is there something that can be done? Every few weeks, I have to call out or take a day off. I'm working 6 days a week with no package help. It's painful. My body hurts everywhere. I have injuries from overuse that are not healing. I call out on September 25th. She texts me saying I need a doctor note. I replied, if I'm out 3 days or more, you'll get one. She said I have authority to ask now. I ignored it. 14 days later, she pulls me in her office saying she's doing an investigative interview. My union steward was with me. PO said she had every right to ask for a doctor's note from me. I bit my tongue, just answered her questions and left. Union steward assured me she did nothing official and it was a scare tactic. I really can't stand this person, but it won't make me back down. She's a bully. I'm not having it. Anyway, thoughts on this day one sick and note needed? Thanks for hearing me out. I'm tired, stressed, and angry. I like my job. I love you all. Listen every week. You've helped build confidence in my craft.
Well, first, thank you. Second, for the mold, 1767.
And contact OSHA.
Yep. Unfortunately, parcel help, there's not much that can be done in regards to getting parcel help. Come back at the end of the day after completing the route while still in return to, delivery unit is when you would do the mapping if they're doing it in the afternoon, not on PM casing. If your postmaster is telling you have to do it on PM casing, file on that. I would say if you got the route in February, And if you've been doing all of your scans religiously since you got the route in February, let's see where you end up this time. Hopefully you'll go up and to at least the J route. But until we get these results, it's hard to say anything. Keep in mind it's going to take a full 52 weeks, so it won't be until the next mini mail survey and new evaluation that you'll actually see the full results of what the route is really worth if your predecessor was only doing the 6 mandatory scans. Next.
Yeah, I'm going to say your postmaster avoiding doing the mapping, definitely file a grievance on that, especially now that the mini mail survey is over and the results are going to be coming in. That's one of the big things that you need to file on, is that I have not done mapping, and I did not have mapping completed by the mini mail survey time or by the end of the mini mail survey. That way you have the 14 days to file the grievance from the end of the mini mail survey, because they were supposed to have that done by the 8th. And if your mapping is not accurate and not complete, file a grievance on that. That is separate from the dispute process. Mapping should be done monthly, and it should be done on return to DU time. Should not be on PM casing, should not be clocked out. The only other way mapping can be done is 8127 time in the morning, and they provide auxiliary assistance for you, whether it's putting a sub in your case to continue casing while you're doing the mapping, or giving you parcel help when you're out delivering on the route, one of the two. But that
It will
definitely
be either or.
needs to be grieved.
It would be either 8127 or auxiliary help for the amount of time that it took you to do the mapping.
No, in the AM time, they should be giving auxiliary assistance while doing mapping, and the mapping should be on 8127 time because it's supposed to be baked into the evaluation. So they're paying for not baking it into the evaluation, and the auxiliary assistance is just to keep them in timeline on their route.
I'd have to look into that one, but I think it would be. I understand what you're saying, but I think it would be either or, because if they give you, let's say it's an hour, if they give you an hour of 8127 time, you're getting paid that hour. If they give you 1 hour of auxiliary assistance, that makes up the time that you were in the office not delivering.
Yeah. So we'll figure that out, and we'll let you guys know next week. We'll make a note of that, Josh. We'll look it up and give it the results of next week's podcast. And then the other question.
Can I add a footnote on there?
Yep.
Didn't I see something on our national website saying mapping is the most important phase of the rec system?
Yes.
Okay, then how come we're not forcing this issue from the national level?
People can draw their own conclusions at carrier discretion on that.
Yeah, I would say to every carrier out there who is not being who is not involved in their mapping in any way, shape, or form, whether it's excuse after excuse or trying to whatever it is, file immediately. Every single one of you out there who hasn't been able to update, who hasn't been able to look at it, who is told, no, we're just doing updates, you can't look at anything else, who hasn't been allowed to look at anything, whose management mapped it for them without telling them. Any and everything of that stuff needs to be filed on, and keep filing on it until something to happen, till it's taken care of.
Until you're doing it every single month, and they give you the ability to go through everything on the mapping program every single time. File a grievance if they're not allowing you to do that. It doesn't matter if you have no updates to your edit book. I had no updates one month, and I went in, did my mapping, and I found errors in my mapping.
I had that.
So it doesn't
too.
matter. It doesn't matter whether you have updates or not. you should be going through your mapping every single month. And there are a lot of managers that won't let you do that. I know a manager personally who I know would not do that with their carriers. I can't say anything for that office because I'm not an area steward, ADR, or DR, or a NRO, or a director of steward operations. I can't say anything to that person right now. But those carriers should be filing a grievance every single time with their designated union representative. And that is something that needs to be done now. We need to step up and protect our own pay. I'm going to finish up with just her last question here of the mold. Yes, contact OSHA, Occupational Safety Health Administration. Contact your county health department. They have access to that as well. So I would get a hold of everybody you can to get that resolved and file a 1767 safety hazard form. Mold is deadly.
Yes, yes, it is.
So management's going to continue to harass us because they've been unabated by it. They've been doing it not only to us, but to city carriers as well. You can hear that from ADA arbitration. Management's going to harass carriers to get us to do things the way they want them done. And as soon as we continue to do them the way they've done, as soon as we start standing up for it, they're going to start saying, oh, past practice, we've been doing it this way. Past practice, we've been doing it that way. Stand up now, fight for it now, or else you'll lose it. That's the biggest thing here. Past practice is something they're going to use against us. And unless we stand up and fight management now to support the contract that we have and the MOUs we have and the Rex information that we have, use it or lose it. I hate to be a fearmonger on that, but we know management will climb a tree to lie than stand on the ground to tell the truth. Bill, go. This is your area.
Past practices don't justify future action. If you've been doing it wrong, then correct it. If they don't correct it, file. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there is nothing funnier than when I would walk up to the postmaster with a piece of paper in my hand and he would just roll his eyes and just say, what now? Because he knew I'd have a grievance in my hand and he was going to pay. And language, I didn't settle for language except for, yes, I'll take care of it, make out the settlement form, I'll sign it. That's the only language I ever settled for. Every time. The only time I ever settled for language is when it went to step 2. And then my DR got some of my language. Protect yourself, protect the craft, help those around you. There are plenty of people out there who are afraid of retaliation, but if you get a strong enough base in your office, then you'll all be able to stand up to management and they will back off. EEOs, 1767s, call OSHA about the black mold, National Labor Relations Board, whatever it takes to get them in line, because this is the worst I've ever seen in my life as far as the intimidation, the fear factor that management's trying to instill into our craft across the board, across the entire country. And I'm sick and tired of hearing it. I really am.
I'm going to add to that just a little bit. I was talking to an academy instructor friend of mine this past week, and they happen to have been doing where they were teaching academy the previous week. There was also management training going on, and all it was about was getting people out faster and working harder.
They're going to abuse you. They're
Yeah.
going to abuse you. They're going to see how much stuff they can get away from before you finally put your foot down and say enough is enough. And now enough is enough. They screwed with our pay. They've screwed with our work conditions. They've screwed with our benefits. They're screwing with carriers, making them work god-awful hours because they're too lazy to hire people. They're too lazy to change the way they do things, to get more people into these offices, to get them to work. And they're too lazy to fix the system that's broken. And that system that's broken is management. The way they manage people is broken. And we need to be the ones to stand up and tell them enough is enough. And all it takes is one carrier in an office to file a grievance, turn around and get paid for that grievance, and go, look, I filed a grievance on them doing this to me, and I got this check. That gets the other carriers going, money? Money? I can get money? And then more of them will file grievances. Be the person that steps up and shows these carriers that fighting for what you deserve, fair pay for fair work. Show them the check. Get them involved. Show them that fighting for your money is worth it. Any steward worth their salt is going to fight every single grievance you put in front of them. It doesn't matter if they're going to win or lose. They're going to fight that one to the death. They're going to do a celebrity death match with management on that one for you if they're the steward's worth their salt. And if you have a steward that's not worth their salt, you got several options. You can vote them out. You can run against them as a steward. You can turn around and contact your ADR, DR, or whoever's above them and let them know that they're not doing their job. It's possible to win 95% of the grievances you put out there. The problem is people are only filing on 5% of the things that are grievable. Time to step up those numbers. Time to get involved, time to get in front of your management and get them to do the thing they're supposed to be doing, which is honoring the contract and honoring the MOUs that have been signed. We're a passionate group here. We care about all of you. We want you to succeed at this. But you need to step up and help us help you by filing grievances.
I've got a comment from last week's episode that the commenter says, I agree with Bill about geofencing. Scanning for that delay due to weather. It's crazy that they call us thieves or liars, yet they call this integrity scanning. Where is the integrity, criminals? Mic drop.
Amen.
Yep.
Well, we also have a comment in the chat section there about having somebody to stand up and don't wait for somebody else to do it. Be the first. Be the first.
And we'll stand with you. Every one of us here.
I don't know if our listening audience understands, but I'm not the most popular person at the national convention for some unknown reason.
I don't think any of us are.
Or anymore.
But
I'm definitely not anymore.
but the thing of it is, in my office where I had to represent people I'm not especially fond of, do you know how big a smile they have when they get their pay stub and they see a grievance settlement on there that they forgot about or they didn't expect to get or how much it was? And I tell them, I said, glad to be of service.
Yep.
And that's what this is about, being of service to you.
All right, here's one for you guys in the chat. My union steward says I have to pick my battles instead of just filing on every contract violation.
I would
Wrong.
say that your
Wrong.
union steward needs to go back to their route if they're not on their route, and if they're a local union steward, I would say vote them out next time around.
Mm-hmm.
Remember,
I vote them out now.
in July of 24, calls for contractually every 4 years to coincide with the presidential elections. You're supposed to have a steward election.
If you wish to. You don't have to, but yeah.
Or have them removed, have the steward removed for failure to duly represent.
Yep. You can call for an election for yourself too if you wish.
I'm going to quote a friend of mine. I know I've screenshot this and post in a couple locations, but I'm gonna quote a friend of mine who made a post the other day, and this person has a lot of good words of wisdom that kind of fall into what we are speaking. It says, if you're not grown enough to be able to listen to things with which you might disagree and be open to learning from differing opinions, then you're not yet grown enough for leadership, private sector or public service. In a world where you can be anything, be kind, and be kind enough to listen once in a while. The world can change in a positive way when listening happens.
You're here.
Yep.
I would say
I'll go.
going back to with.
Good.
I would say going back to with where we were talking, with that comment that we were just talking about. Conversation I had with one of the supervisors that's not over the rule at all, so they don't deal with the grievances at all, about a grievance that I filed for them sending messages on the scanner. He's like, he asked, what's the point? He says, well, how am I supposed to get information out to you? I'm like, you can come out and find me on the route or wait till I get back. He's like, why file? I said, because if I let you get away with something simple like that, what's the next thing you're going to try and breach the contract with?
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to file on the small stuff, because the small stuff turns into big stuff.
Yep. Because they're
It
going to
will,
say, well, we got away with this. What else can we get away with?
and you don't want to do that. You know, it gets
Management
trigger,
management is not your friend.
All right. I'm sorry, Bill, you were going to say something. And
Well, to piggyback off of Chris in regards to listening, it was funny because I went to Catholic school all my life, and I learned a very important lesson in 7th grade from Sister Ann Elizabeth, who had a propensity for beating us. And I was arguing a point one day, and she smacked me upside the head and said, "You know, Mr. May, you can't listen if you're talking." And that's funny because it's so true. If you don't shut up, how are you going to listen to the other person? How are you going to hear what they're really saying? It's a physical anomaly that while you're talking, your jaws and your eardrums are working so that you're blocking out most of what the other person's trying to say. So stop, pause, listen to the other side of the argument, the other opinion, whether it's opposing to what your beliefs are, and just take in consideration what the other person's saying. Now, in regards to management, if their mouth is moving, they're lying. Okay. So file.
here's another one in there. Can you file anonymously to not get backlash from fellow carriers?
What she just said. No, you can't file anonymously, but technically a grievance should be private.
I would say
It
the only way for it to be anonymous is if it affects more than one carrier. Where it asks for your personal information, you can put class action and send it into the steward. Yep, supposedly.
And that's a problem we have in our craft. Okay. I mean, you're worried about backlash from fellow carriers who are working off the clock or bending the rules and being the teacher's pet. And, folks, this stuff has to stop. And you have to be a strong enough person to turn around and go to the other carriers and say, do you know, we all are part of the same craft. We're all part of the union. We're all brothers and sisters in this. So please stop it. Do what's good for everybody, not just for yourself. Look past yourselves, because that's the foundation of the union. We're looking out for the entire body, not just one or two people. Yes, we are protecting an individual in a certain situation, but it's for the good of the entire craft. On a
That
side
is a
note,
very good
I,
question.
on a side note, I've never seen men turn into such willy-nilly little gossipers until I came to the post office. They are the worst.
I'll let you handle this question, James. Are we getting our paychecks this week?
No, next week.
Supposedly. No, it'll be
No,
Friday.
they're all gonna be zeros this week for everybody. Just kidding.
I
Just
thought
kidding.
I
I
thought the
haven't.
other half was gonna.
The other half's gonna get them this week, and the ones that got them last week aren't gonna get them. That's what's probably gonna happen. No, supposedly the system worked fine for updating it. I've been hearing some people are getting their pay in their accounts already on some places and things like that. They're showing a prepayment to their accounts. So far we're okay on that aspect, because the same people said they didn't get their pay last time, but it'll probably still be a few more weeks before we get the paycheck that was lost for those that did not get paid. Supposedly we're supposed to get them. So we'll see in a few weeks if everybody slowly gets their paychecks that they missed or not. And remember, those of you that got their 65%, there may be a chance that you actually get a negative check. I would grieve it.
Well,
I would grieve it and consider it the cost of losing your check.
All right, I got this one that just came through. Can you file a grievance against a clerk who is taking green cards off of certified letters, calling RCA stupid? No, you can't file against the clerk. You have to file against management for allowing the clerk to do that.
On top of that, if they are taking the green cards off of certified letters, I would call the Office of Inspector General.
Well, we don't know if they're being signed, and then but yeah, I don't know if they're calling RCA stupid, and why are they taking the green cards off of the certified letters? That's a return receipt.
Yeah, they're doing it.
It has to be signed. Therefore, they are messing with mail, which is a felony.
Yep.
Yes, that needs to be brought up to management and gone from there.
And file a hostile work environment. Did management violate the contract, MOUs, or joint statement 4-40 when it allowed clerk so-and-so to belittle the RCAs and file it as a class action?
I love that word.
Because
it starts with F and there's 4 letters.
File. But yeah, you deserve to work in a workplace that is free of harassment, where everybody is treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. There are 2 joint statements about this, both of them related to facility dangerous conditions. We'll keep it clean to keep it from being pulled from multiple platforms that use bots to figure out whether you say specific keywords. But one of them was Royal Oak. So that gives you an idea as to why they wrote those joint statements. We've had issues in other offices recently where situations like that have occurred. We need to force them on the joint statement 4-40. We need to be treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. That's another grievance you can file. Protect yourself. Protect your fellow carriers.
It's not a 4-letter word, but I got a word for you. It starts with F and ends with UCK.
Yeah, wrong word.
Yep.
Fire truck?
Yep.
A little bit longer than 4 letters, though.
I said it was
That's what he
more
said.
than 4 letters.
Yeah, that's true. I have I received this message on September 4th, and I kind of want to share it because it's really awesome, and I know we've been passionate, but I received this message. It just says, "I absolutely love the podcast," with 3 exclamation marks. I'm not going to say where they're from. And have learned so much, and it helps that we are truly in this together. Keep it up, and thanks.
Can I guess? They're from the United States.
They are.
Canada?
Absolutely. No,
And thank you for listening.
Yes,
absolutely.
thank
Thank
you.
you. We appreciate every single one of you as you all continue to grow, and we're growing with you. That is definitely for sure.
Yeah,
I have one.
let me point this out real quick. That even if by some miracle Bill May became president of the NRLCA, I would still be on this podcast, and I would still solicit questions, challenges, and the agonies of our carriers directly, because of the fact that I can't get this information from the national board. I can't get it from the state presidents or the DRs or ADRs. If you don't listen to the people on the ground, how are you going to know what needs to be addressed? How are you going to know why people are walking off the job and leaving their badges and scanners and keys on the case, or why people are so frustrated with the union as a whole? And
Exactly.
this is what they don't understand, and this is what they don't grasp, that these are our lives, folks. I mean, you're not playing with just numbers like they do. Oh, well, if we had another 4,000 members, we'd have 15 million in our coffer. But no. These are human beings you're dealing with. The emotions, the intellects, the sorrows, the joys, and these people don't get it.
No,
And that,
because if I remember the State of the Union address for what I could sit through until Dr. Miracle took the stage, all it was talking about money. It wasn't talking about the carriers and the union and what's going on those aspects. It was how much we put out for the flippin' elevators and how much more work we need done on the office and doing this. It was all about the money. And I'm over it. I get it. A building needs upkeep. But when you have the carriers that are suffering day in and day out at the hands of management, you know what? That money is not that important. What should be important is you caring about the carriers that are on the ground and getting that taken care of.
I'm off my box.
Now, Kristen, I don't remember. Do they do finance report
Yes.
Tuesday or Wednesday? Okay,
Yes.
so there is a time and place in the program for them to discuss financials.
Yep.
hmm
Okay, all right. I'm stepping off the soapbox before I fall in the rabbit hole.
Well, what doesn't help is when you have your president come to mid states and agree with the regional ops manager that it's the carrier's fault that their evaluations went down. And then you have your new president reiterate that fact after he's elected president, that it's the carrier's fault for not going to the union website and getting the information and learning their own craft, even though we have the M36 that says management is responsible for extreme changes in the workflow process. We needed to hold them accountable to that, but our union leaders did not step up and say, you guys need to train us on this. You need to set a time and a place for every carrier to be trained on this, whether they are regular carriers, RCAs, ARCs, it doesn't matter. They all need to be trained on this system because you're putting them into a new system that they have to fill out and they have to work with. And it's a completely different process from the way they've been delivering it before. You need to step up and say, until you train all of these, we can't make this live, because they don't have the information to create an educated judgment on whether the system works or not. You didn't even test the system out because you haven't touched a scanner in 17 years or more. None of y'all did. But you sit there and you tell us it's our fault. It's the carrier's fault for not learning this system. I call BS on that. I call BS on the fact that you did not go out and tell every single carrier, get your stewards in the offices and tell every single carrier to do this. You had local stewards who knew more about the rec system than the local management. You had district representatives and USPS district representatives who knew less about the rec system than your local stewards did. But you want to sit there and tell everybody it's the carrier's fault.
Yep.
How is it the carrier's fault when management didn't follow postal rules and regulations? Tell me.
Yeah, exactly. The training falls on management. Yes, the union put out a bunch of tools, but it's supposed to fall on management. And I remember when I transferred into my office, having come from a test study office, so I knew it was coming. It was a matter of when. And any time that I mentioned the system or this, that, and another before the scanners had the update with the rural activity scans on it, anytime I mentioned anything about it, I got looked at, even by my postmaster and everybody else in my office, like I was a three-headed monster. What the hell are you talking about? Just that's my personality, is not,
We got a comment. It would seem that since you guys are so knowledgeable and do the podcast, that y'all wouldn't have many grievance problems in your offices. If that's the case, it shows we need stewards that care in every office to help keep management in check. Well, for me, I have a postmaster that believes that taking care of your carriers benefits the office, because the higher our evaluations are, the higher her office budget is. So it benefits her for us to benefit from this process. But there are a lot of management that doesn't. Bill, your manager?
My manager is afraid of his boss, and the supervisors are in fear of their jobs from the postmaster, who's in fear of the whom. So therefore, they all operate under the basis of fear, and they do what they're told, even if they know it's against the contract. And if you explain that to them, that, the more profitable the routes are, the more profitable the office is, aka your pay goes up, they're not even interested. They're just trying to hold on to their jobs. So, I'm envious and jealous of the people who have postmasters and supervisors who work with them and understand the craft. But I haven't seen that in 20 plus years.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of them that are in fear of their own jobs because of those above them. I mean, that's pretty similar in my office at that aspect too, is that Poom runs the show. I mean, right down to stupid little, calling an RCA and to do parcel assistance on a day after a holiday, or something as little as minute as, oh, well, we have to get permission first. Why, what happened to management managing their offices? They don't manage their offices anymore. They just do as they're directed and push it on down the line.
Because they got Pooms looking at spreadsheets thinking that they control the world with those spreadsheets.
I've never seen a spreadsheet drive an LLV yet.
I ain't never seen a spreadsheet from management that's actually accurate.
I've never seen a spreadsheet do a scan.
We can say that about some people too.
You only have to do 6.
Only have to.
They only worry about the 6, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you could miss an end load or miss a start load or accidentally hit end load instead of start load, And so then you end up with 2 end loads, and they're like, hey, you're missing a start load, so you can do that anytime, just as long as they even out. Really? That's what's important to you guys up above, is making sure all those 6 scans have a beginning and an like start load and end load have a beginning and an ending, and there's a clock in and a clock out and a return to unit and a depart to route. That's what's important to you guys? Okay.
And don't forget that it's only the rest of the scans are only important to them when they say 0. That's when they matter to management. Anything above that, and it's a problem.
Right? Oh yeah, we got that whole little spiel on, well, don't be doing any extra scans. We're watching you. Honey, my office has been good doing scans from the very beginning because I trained them. And RCA trained them not once but twice, and still takes the time to answer questions from every single carrier when the question is asked.
But
Even though she doesn't have to.
I don't have to
and
anymore. And anytime there's a box holder, and they still ask me, is this box holder a walking sequent, letter, flat? Or, hey, don't forget to add these in. I'm still the one conducting everything in the damn office.
And that's how it should be. Us carriers should be supporting each other on this. It doesn't matter if you're a
Absolutely.
union steward or not. If you're the one with the knowledge, give it to your fellow carrier. Because guess what? You help that carrier out, that's a more knowledgeable carrier. And as we said time and time again, a knowledgeable carrier scares management.
And if everybody in your office is knowledgeable, you're untouchable.
Management shouldn't be messing with you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if management does, you're like, Bill, you file until management finally stops.
Yeah.
I have another comment from one of my groups that says, "You rock. You say everything I say, but no one listens. LOL. And yes, I believe we are united in craft."
it's the goal, or at least the end goal.
Yes, we want to be united as a craft. The rural carrier craft. We support our fellow brothers and sisters in the city craft, the clerk craft, the janitorial craft, VMF, the mail handlers, all of them. But the biggest one we are personally concerned about is our fellow rural carriers. The ones on the streets, the boots on the ground, the ones that scan every single day, the ones that have to deal with managerial harassment every single day, the ones seeing the problems on the ground. That's what we care about. And we'll care about that till after we're retired.
Do we support Kraft mayonnaise?
I
Nah, I'm a Hellman's
prefer
man.
Miracle Whip.
Hellman.
Oh, Hellman's. Oh, Miracle Whip.
Now, you
Uh,
can't say that
I don't
too
care.
loud where I live because they mostly deal with Duke.
I did not
What, Josh?
understand a single word you said, dude.
get the cat.
I
Yeah,
said,
get the cat off your face.
I'm outside, so the cat's nowhere near me. I said, where I live now, I can't say that too loudly because they all support Duke.
So we got a good question here posed. Says, any chance you would all ever do a podcast for new and existing stewards like Corey Walton does on From A to Arbitration?
Tightrope.
We would.
Rabbit hole.
we would, but there's so much right now going on in the craft as a whole that it's more important that we get the information out for the whole craft. But that may be something we take up at a later time. But right now, we want to focus on the current issues that everybody in the craft is facing, because I believe that getting the craft more educated on this stuff is more important than getting into specifics like steward systems and things like that. Plus, on top of that, our national board does do their once monthly steward Zoom not training. So you do have that outlet as a steward, at least. But a lot of the stuff we talk about is stuff that stewards should know or need to learn, because these are issues that every carrier is facing, and the stewards are going to have to deal with in a grievance form.
And just
Do
like
you
we
guys
do
agree?
this podcast on our own time, our free will. I mean, as a steward, I've taken calls on Sundays, Saturdays, on vacation, away from home. There's no hours to it in regards to protecting my office. So if you don't put in your time, your due diligence, and read up and study, you're not going to improve just by us pointing you in the direction. You have to do some of it on your own. And I know you won't get paid for it, but that's the price of being of service.
Yeah. There's a part-time ADR I talked to that not only works his route, but does 100 hours a week of steward service. 100 hours a week on top of his regular route. So he's working 140 hours a week minimum just to take care of the craft. That's passion right there. That's passion for the
That
craft.
That's
That is.
dedication. That is definitely
That is
dedication.
caring for your fellow rural carriers right there. And I will use him as my talking point of how our craft should be handled. It's his passion is the rural carriers. I have yet
Well,
to see more people have a passion than that. Even us on this podcast. No offense, guys. I don't think we can compete with that.
I say that that's more than he should be, because of the fact that he shouldn't have that much of a workload that he has 100 hours a week of steward time.
I agree. But a
But
lot of
it
that
is what it
is
is.
a lot of that is there aren't local stewards in his area. And so if you're in an office that doesn't have a local steward, step up, take the work off of the ADRs and the area stewards, because some of those guys are working their butts off for the craft, and they could use your help.
All right, guys, we're gonna wind this one down for tonight.
Yep.
It's already just past 9 o'clock Eastern time. So, Josh, last words, thoughts for the evening.
Count's over. Everyone can exhale now. It'll probably be a minimum of 2 weeks before we figure out what the results are. Hopefully less, but don't get overwhelmed. If you do, take a step back, take a deep breath, step back in. Have a good week. Catch you next time.
James, your last final words for this evening.
We have a very, very passionate group of people here, and I'm sure it shows. And we hope that this passion that we have reflects in how you approach your job as a rural carrier, as you approach your craft. And if you have the passion to take care of the craft, please step up, help your fellow carriers. If you feel the urge to run for local steward, go for it. Knowledgeable carriers are what we need in this craft. And you guys listening to us is the start of that. And then talking with your designated union rep and finding out what the union says on these things and what the union policies and procedures are for this. Talk with them, get information. Information is your best friend. So I hope you guys all have a good week out there. Don't get overstressed. If you start feeling overheated, take a breather, take a break, because it's still warm out there in a lot of places. The Hurricane Lee is going to pass off the coast so far, at least according to forecasts. So if you're on the coastal water areas, be aware of the high waves that may occur. And we'll see you guys next week.
Okay, Bill.
Oh, well, the stressful part of the mini mail survey is over. Now the anticipation begins, waiting to find out what your valuations are going to be. Contrary to James, I believe we're going to have minimal influence in regards to the 66% who lost last time. The next big one, I believe, will be in 2024 when the numbers from the FSS, dissolving the FSS, comes off of our yearly average. So that one I think is going to be really fun because that'll affect my office. And we went up substantially when we got rid of FSS. So I expect the reoccurring theme to be an appropriate drop to the FSS. What do you call it? Dissolution of the FSS. Don't sign the slips if you have anything that you're going to dispute. Don't even write on them. Well, this is my personal opinion. I'm not going to select a high or low option based on an evaluation. I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to cooperate with management in any such fashion until they can prove all the numbers that they're posting on the mini mail survey. It's ridiculous to sign anything that you cannot prove and they cannot prove. So everybody just go out and, do the jobs the way you're supposed to, the way you have been doing them, do them correctly, do them to the best of your ability. Be safe out there. And every day at the end of the shift, go home to your loved ones because you're the most important delivery of the day.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Yeah, everybody be safe out there this week. I'm just running one route right now, unless I have to throw my ox route in there 6 days a week. Nothing much is going to change at this point for me. I'm holding down the route that I'll eventually take over. Just got to wait for it to come up for bid. But yeah, everybody stay safe out there this week. Don't forget, file when necessary. And take care of each other. And we'll see you back next week.